Hey everybody, Jonathan Bailor back with another bonus SANE show, and we are joined by show veterans and dear friends Jayson and Mira Calton. Jayson and Mira, how you doing today?
Doing great, Jonathan. How are you?
Fantastic to be back.
To be back on the show, and it's exciting because today we are going to talk about, and I'm just going to come right out and say it because it's going to be the context for our conversation. Folks have known for a while that you guys are the micronutrient champions, and most recently, though, you have released a fat,
Yes,
called skinny fat, and this sort of begs the question. A question I always get asked when people see things like this, and I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on it. Is all right. And actually, I had this experience on last year's low carb cruise where people were talking about Dave Asprey's bulletproof coffee. I literally had someone come up to me and say, all right, so my plan to get healthy is I'm going to take my existing diet that I'm currently eating, and I'm just going to supplement 700 calories of MCT oil into that diet. Like, I'm just going to add 700 calories of healthy fat into that diet, and I'm going to lose weight, right?
Oh, goodness, no.
let's try to understand how it might work. So when we call it skinny fat, we call it skinny fat because it was a fun play. It was a fun play on words. So the idea is that you can eat fats, particularly good fats, and you can get skinny. So fat doesn't make you fat. But if fat is taken or eaten in the wrong combinations, it can make you fat. Now, the interesting thing about skinny fat is because, like you mentioned, the majority of the fat in skinny fat is MCT. Now, don't make a mistake. Skinny fat is not just MCT oil. And there are some problems with MCT oil, and we can discuss those in the show. But the reason why we didn't want to make it straight MCT is people can get stomach upset. And, of course, MCT stands for medium chain triglycerides. Medium chain triglycerides are digested differently than regular fats or fats that contain something called long chains. So long chains make the body secrete bile acid, and that bile acid then breaks down that fat. And we use that same bile acid to absorb fat-soluble vitamins. And so because we're the micronutrient people, like you said, we were looking for an oil that would help our people to absorb the fat-soluble vitamins from their salads and from their smoothies and from anything that they were doing. The fact that it has medium chain triglycerides protects them from storage of body fat, but here's how it works. So you take in this fat, right, and you get all these MCTs going in, and the body uses those MCTs immediately, first thing, as energy. But if you're taking them in with a bunch of carbohydrates, it's going to make it so that those carbohydrates, if you don't need any more energy, if those MCTs have delivered all the energy your body needs, then the body turns those carbohydrates into fat. Okay? So fat and carbs, not a great idea together.
Yep. No, and I appreciate you highlighting this because this is really what I wanted to help people understand, because not only with skinny fat, but with just coconut oil and olive oil and all the talk of fat being healthy, and especially with MCT oil being shown in isocaloric studies to, if you substitute saturated fats with MCTs, you do burn fat. But the key there is if you substitute, meaning if you were to take 500 calories of hydrogenated oils and swap in 500 calories of coconut oil, that would be good. But that's not the same as just saying, I'm going to dump a liter of skinny fat into my morning coffee and just drink that and expect myself to lose weight, right?
No, and I hear that all over the place because I spend a lot of time, probably more time on Facebook than I probably should. I'm trying to answer. I mean, like, I get so aggravated because I hear people just saying, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to have my bulletproof coffee, or I'm going to have more coconut oil. And then they're like, and I'm going to make it with, my baked potato, and I'm going to drench it with any fat I can find clumped in there. And then I'm going to put some, like, honey on it, and they're like literally making these carb bombs also with fat bombs. And I'm like, you can't just load it all in. If you're going, you have to choose a fuel source, and you have to decide what your body's going to burn. You have to let it burn something. So thank you for bringing that up, actually, because
it's a great point.
It's a really, really good point. You don't just add it in. You have to add in your oils wisely. So when I say that we like using a lot of skinny fat, what I mean by that is that rather than using a different salad dressing made up of either the disgusting canola and corn oil that you see in soybean oil, that you see genetically modified seed oils that you see in the grocery store, I decided that I would make ours from skinny fat. So I'm not just adding extra skinny fat in. I'm just taking a bad product and making it be something that can be healthy. Like mayonnaise is another good example. You can add mayonnaise as long as you understand that you're just going to now use this oil instead of the other one.
I really appreciate that replacement paradigm? Because as you said, it's so easy for people to just, they can start to see fat almost as they would see a multivitamin. Just add this as a supplement. And that's really, it sounds like that's kind of not what we're going after. And I think another distinction that I would be really useful to talk with you guys about is, so people hear coconut oil and they're like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Costco and I'm going to buy the 2-pound drum of coconut oil. I'm just going to take 2 tablespoons of coconut oil per day. But what about coconut, right? We're big fans of whole foods. So there seems to be this emphasis on oils, but not so much emphasis on eating olives, for example, rather than olive oil. What are your thoughts on whole food sources of fat as contrasted with oils?
Well, I mean, whole foods are different. So when you're starting to bring in, let's say coconut, for example, and olives are a good example of too. But with coconut, you're also bringing in, if you're eating the whole food, that's great as long as you're allowing carbohydrates into your overall macronutrient profile. So first things first, you got to know what you're doing. Are you an 80-20 type of low-carb diet, or are you a Mediterranean diet, going like a 40-30-30 ratio? Are you a low-fat diet, where you may be taking 20 to 30% fat? Are you
just being conscious of what you're eating, which
right.
I think what the SANE people do.
So yeah, if you're a person who's going to be taking, let's say, 20 to 30% of your diet as fat, and then you're going to, I don't know, have 30 to 40% as carbohydrates and whatever else is left there in protein, sure, coconut by itself is going to be great. It's going to give you the fats, it's going to give you the MCTs, it's going to give you the carbohydrates, it's going to give you the fiber. It's a whole food source. But if we're an 80-20 dieter in ketogenic dieting, then what are we doing? We can't eat the coconut because it has had too many carbs. So in order to get those beneficial antibacterial, antiviral, kind of fat burning, brain boosting, metabolism boosting effects, then the oil would be better. And it kind of in both cases with the olive as well as with the coconut. But, obviously, Mira and I have always kind of prided ourselves as being food first people. And so we always want you to get the highest micronutrient rich foods you can based on your dietary profile, and then just kind of switch things around from there.
Gotcha. And again, that's a really important distinction for people, is to say, like, what is your goal? If you're going for a ketogenic diet where you're sub 50 grams of carbohydrate and you just need calories, you're not going to get, protein is not a source of energy, right? And you've said, I'm not going to get it from carbs. So you're only going to get it from fats, and you have to then focus on concentrated sources of fat. But I think there might be quite a few people out there that are intentionally increasing their fat intake without intentionally decreasing their carbohydrate intake at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. One or the other. You just have to make a choice. And that's what we see with a lot of the recipes right now. And that's why I'm so happy that you're bringing this point up. In terms of eating the whole coconut, absolutely. I would love, if you're not counting your carbohydrates, eat the whole coconut. For us, it's very much the same way we look at juicing. You know what? If you can either take the juice of 30 apples in one glass, or you could actually eat an apple. And eating the apple is going to give you a lot more of, a broad spectrum. You're going to get more of the fiber. You're not going to get nearly as many calories as the glass of juice. So it's the same thing with eating the whole coconut. If you can, if that fits into your protocol, then absolutely, because you're going to get all the benefits from the meat, from the fiber, from the fat that's naturally in it, all those great things.
Plus, if you crack it open, you'll get some exercise too. Not exactly easy.
Absolutely. You'll put some work in. So there's 2 really good distinctions so far. I just want to summarize for our viewers and listeners. First is that anytime we talk about any kind of oil, be it skinny fat oil in general, first of all, we're talking about things like coconut oil, MCT oil, these healthy fats as replacements for hydrogenated nonsense, not as, yes, you should just increase your caloric intake by 800 calories per day from fat, don't change anything else. We're not saying that. No one's saying that. And the second distinction is, if the whole food fits into your lifestyle, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Jayson and Mira, but unless you're on a ketogenic diet, I would think almost all whole food sources of fat, coconut, cocoa, eggs, chia, flax, avocados, they're gonna fit in. So unless you're on like a therapeutic, hardcore ketogenic diet, they're gonna fit in. So again, if you're not on that, you shouldn't just be like, that's not gonna turn out well.
No, it's to replace other oils in most recipes. So what we've done is we started really slowly. So we're making like salad dressing recipes. We're showing people how to use them in protein shakes. And one of the reasons right now is people aren't necessarily adding any source of good fat into their protein shakes. And we're seeing that as a big problem because they're not able to really absorb and they're not satiated for a long enough period of time. So if that's one of your goals and you like taking a protein shake in the morning, make sure to take like a teaspoon, a tablespoon of something like skinny fat, because that's going to, in studies, it'll keep you satiated all the way through till the lunch.
Right.
So
yeah, that's really where those studies came from. They highlight the aspect of getting that protein for breakfast, but in all reality, you want the protein and a little bit of fat. So like an egg, that's a perfect food for breakfast. But if you're one of these people who want to have a protein shake, then a tablespoon of skinny fat going in that protein, that's great because that fat will be used as your energy source. Like you said, it'll have a protein sparing effect. You don't want to just have protein because protein is a poor energy source. You've got to convert that protein to carbs and then that carbs to fat, and this is all just a big mess. So it's great to have the protein, a little bit of a fat source. It'll keep you satisfied all day. And that's really, I think, what people were missing out on in that protein shake. Also, we just, like you said, we want you to get rid of, and we can't express enough, get rid of those genetically modified oils. And how do we do that? That was the big thing. We said, don't buy that salad dressing. Don't buy that cooking oil.
We looked in Rich Report Food and we couldn't find any out there. There was no good salad dressing. So that's one of the reasons.
So we said, well, if we can't find one, then we're going to have to make one. And we are probably going to go into production of salad dressings down the line here, but we wanted to give people the raw ingredients that they could use, that skinny fat, and they could make any salad dressing they want. And the reason we did it is there's nothing wrong with coconut oil, just in and of itself, except for it tastes like coconuts.
And it clumps and everything.
Yeah, it clumps.
Salad dressing, it doesn't make a great Italian coconut dressing. Nobody does it, right? You can't make a great pesto with coconut oil. So the great thing about skinny fat is it really takes on whatever flavor that you're going to be combining it with. And of course, we have skinny fat olive too. Now, let's talk a little bit about that. We love olive oil. Olive oil has been shown to have a lot of health benefits, but there's a couple problems with olive oil. First of all, it's high in omega-6. So it's got right around 10,000, I think right around that 10,000 milligrams. Yeah, it's 10-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-1, or to omega-3. And we like to keep that ratio closer to a 3-to-1 to a 1-to-1. And the real problem is, how do you catch up? So if you're using olive oil on everything, you're getting all that omega-6. Maybe you're getting 10,000 milligrams a day of omega-6 and you want to get that omega-3 ratio up again, you've got to now take like 9 fish oil pills. And it gets worse with some of these oils. Some of these oils have up to 57,000 milligrams, like with safflower oil or grapeseed oil. So you see, you'll never catch up. You'll never bring that ratio back. So we wanted to make sure. So what we did is we took skinny fat, which is MCT and coconut, and we added in organic, extra virgin olive oil.
And we checked it's real olive oil.
Yeah, it's real olive oil. We sourced it directly from Spain, and we added it in. And because MCT oil is a flavor enhancer, it tastes just like olive oil, but with 85% less omega-6. And that's the big kicker. That's what we want to see, and that's what we want to try to achieve, at least for our, with our patients and our clients. We try to keep those omega-6 to omega-3 ratios right in line.
Very, very helpful. And I want to go back to the satiety point earlier, because I thought that's a really great thing to dig into, and especially with your micronutrient focus as well. Tying back to our stories of inappropriate usage of oil earlier, where individuals might say, all I'm going to have today to eat is 700 calories of oil mixed with a beverage, and I'm going to fast. You don't get any micronutrients if you do that. And have you ever seen people who literally, because they're taking in so many calories from fat, they're so satiated that they're now not able to just it's like, I'm full, so I'm not going to eat micronutrient rich foods. Have you seen anyone have that problem?
Well, everybody in a lot of these rooms are actually saying, oh, I'm not hungry anymore. I was keto adapted. I'm not hungry anymore. Yeah. And you're just sitting there going, well, it's not okay to be not hungry. I mean, your body tells you you're hungry because you're supposed to find foods that are supposed to fill you with vitamins and minerals in order for you to be healthy. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really big problem now. One thing that we're telling people is to put nutrients directly into their protein shakes. Mm-hmm. If you're going to do a shake that's just a high-fat protein shake, put your nutrients right into it. Mm-hmm. That way, at least you're guaranteed twice a day to be having that. That's not an excuse for not eating. I'm not giving anyone that right to not be eating micronutrient-rich foods. But at least it's kind of, with a lot of these people, at least getting them caught up. We tell them that basically, yes, you're going to lose a whole lot of pant sizes, perhaps, by doing this, but you're going to get sick in a different way. You're going to become deficient, and that deficiency will cause a different disease.
Yeah, with this intermittent fasting and fasting in general, I think it's been around for thousands of years. People have, seen so many benefits from fasting and just kind of detoxifying, and it's becoming popular again. Remember, and of course, if you don't know, if you're listening to this right now and you don't know, we create what we call micronutrient sufficiency is the foundation of optimal health. So, meaning that if you are not micronutrient sufficient, optimal health is impossible. Period, across the board. So if you're going on a fast and you're not getting these micronutrients like you're talking about, Jonathan, then this is just going to create a micronutrient deficiency that over time you're going to have to pay the piper. You always pay the piper. So the way that we'd like to see people do this is like what Mira said. If you're going to do a fast, make it a liquid fast. If you want to use fat as your fuel source, which is a good idea, I guess, because ketogenic dieting works well using fat as a fuel source. There's a few problems. First of all, I don't think it works very well going long periods of time.
Sustainable.
I think it puts you in a state of starvation. And I think what I've seen happen with my clients is that when they come out of that state, yeah, they're not hungry during that time, and also they're not getting enough of the micronutrients. If you add nutrients into it, it'll be better, certainly, and we recommend everybody to do that. But when you come out of that fasting state, the body tends to store whatever you eat next as body fat. And it's because it's starving. The body just, they don't know that you're playing some game or read some book. It knows that we didn't have food for 16 hours. And so what we're going to do with it is we're going to convert that into body fat, so we're going to have all that much more stored energy for the next time that this happens. And the more you do that, I think you're playing a game of Russian roulette with that.
Yeah,
I too long.
I agree, and I think it's in some ways oils they're a very powerful tool because it's a huge amount of calories that can be very satiating, but with no micronutrients at all. And we can tend to, people talk about like meal frequency and yada yada yada, but as you said, I really think the foundation of a long-term healthy lifestyle is you have to be able to eat enough nutrient-rich whole foods that you are going to be micronutrient sufficient. And if you're only eating actual food one meal a day, or you're going to get horrible digestive problems from the 8 servings of vegetables you tried to eat in one sitting.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, that's another reason that we actually created this, is because one of the reasons I got advanced osteoporosis was the fact that I used to be low fat. And I would sit down to tons of vegetables. I like nothing more than a big salad. And I would put the big salad in front of me and I wouldn't put anything on it. And I would think that that was going to help me out in a lot of ways. But the whole thing is I didn't put any fat on to absorb a lot of the micronutrients. And so therefore I still became deficient. So one reason we created this actually is so that we can say to a lot of people out there that might be fear of fat.
Lipophobic.
There you go. We just want to say to them, you can still have it. It doesn't have to be scary, and it can be something you can add that's not necessarily stored as body fat, but it's still going to allow you that micronutrient, nutrition to actually help your body.
Yep. No, I think this is really, really helpful. The 3 key points for listeners to keep in mind. And actually, even before we get to that summary, I just want to encourage our listeners and our viewers to, especially the 3 of us, we're about whole foods, we're about micronutrients, we're about sustainability. So if you find yourself in a world where you're like nutrients, we always talked about, it's an insurance policy. You take it on top of stuff. This primarily, unless you're on a therapeutic ketogenic diet, and that's you better be not a lot of people do that correctly, let's put it that way. Then this is what you would substitute for garbage oils. So it's a substitution. So if you find yourself doing nothing but drinking oil and taking nutrients packets, you're not on the right path. You got to start with whole foods and use these as prescribed, for lack of better terms, which is, I want to clarify, not only for these products, but for other products out there, because it's really, I've seen a lot of people take a few missteps with those products.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We hear it more and more now. And we believe 100% what you said. This is not, just so you know, we don't just sit there and drink it all day. We love our food. We have, we keep a garden. We go to the market. We do all that sort of stuff. We believe in food first. That's why, that's one of the first step in rich food is rich food in our book, Naked Calories. That's food first.
Yeah. I mean, we know how much fat we want to have each day. We know where we are. We know our ratios of fats, carbohydrates, and proteins, depending on what diet we're following. And we measure that. So if we need to get more fat in, yeah, we'll add more skinny fat to that because we know it's a good saturated fat, a good fat for us, and we'll raise it up to that level. We don't just start pouring it in. And people should realize that fat and carbs are kind of like this. It's like a teeter-totter. More carbs, less fat. More fat, less carbs. They're both an energy source. The body can't use them both at the same time. Yeah. So it's going to you have to pick one. And if you're going to be putting in tons and tons of carbs, you know, you need a certain amount of fat. Don't forget, fat's essential. That's why we tend to kind of lean towards using more fat than carbs. But if you are putting more carbs in, you know, you should bring that fat level down to maybe 10, 20%. And I like to keep fat at least 20%.
If you see a recipe that looks like this, with them both way up there, really high, don't make it. That's not going to be good for you in the long run. That is a recipe for gaining weight, and there's a recipe for just not being healthy. There's adding things in for flavor, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Dig it. Well, the one last thing I want to cover is where I think actually using oils of all sorts, not of all sorts, healthy oils, goodness sakes. I'm going to have to cut that part out. The healthy types is... traditionally, endurance athletes have thought that they have to just pound sugar and pound starch, and that's the only way they can get concentrated sources of energy. Well, I think the three of us are here to tell you that there's many other healthier forms of concentrated energy out there for you.
Right.
Well, and one of the studies we have on our website with MCT is that we just talk about how it actually preserves muscle at the same time as allowing your body to move faster, longer, keep that endurance up. And it's actually more preserving than the sugar in terms of your muscle. Yeah,
I mean, you know, I was first introduced to MCT oil way back in the 80s. A guy named John Perillo kind of made it popular in the bodybuilding world. And for many years, many of my clients, including myself, were trying to figure out ways how to build muscle without taking steroids. So, you know, this is an area now where we're not talking about the average person, so I don't want anybody to be confused. But if you're an individual out there and you're saying, how can I exercise day in and day out, I mean, consistently going up in weights, I'm doing everything I can, I'm eating as many calories as I can, and I can still not gain muscle. I can tell you that utilizing MCT oil, utilizing something like skinny fat is an excellent way, and really the only way that you can get those calorie levels up to those where you're probably going to need to really cause your body to gain that muscle. And so if you're a person who's going to need 3,000 calories a day, 4,000 calories a day, 5,000 calories a day. If you're one of these racers, these endurance athletes that are burning through that, and you're figuring out how in the world I can't eat enough food, MCT oil or skinny fat oil is an excellent way for you to add those calories in, and you are going to burn them. What we don't want is the secretary or the bus driver or whoever else pouring it in their coffee or putting it on their food thinking they're going to get thin. That doesn't work like that.
And I can definitely empathize with what you just said, because I think most folks know my story back when I was super skinny and I couldn't get any bigger, and I would literally pound, this was before I knew about MCT oil and things like that, I would pound shots of olive oil, because the only way I could get up to 6,000 calories per day. That caused some distress. Obviously my omega-3 to 6 ratio was a little bit off, and eating coconut oil, which is solid, is kind of disgusting. So having a liquid option available if you are trying to gain weight or are, I just, for example, was working with someone who was recovering from cancer and is having a hard time putting weight on their body, those types of things. Super good asset. So all this said, skinny fat, good stuff. What's next for you guys?
Well,
protein just
launched a new protein powder. So that's our big thing. Baby. We've been looking for a protein for 6 years. I've been in the whole bodybuilding world for many years. So protein's kind of a staple for me and for Mira both. And we wanted to have a protein that was organic. We wanted to have a protein that was non-GMO project verified, obviously grass-fed, pasture-raised. We wanted to have a protein that was single ingredient by Jersey cows with A2 casein. We wanted a protein that tasted like an isolate, but we wanted it to be a concentrate. We wanted to have glutathione levels. We didn't want the processing,
the acid processing, and everything else.
So we finally found one. Long story short, made here right in the USA. It's called InPower. It's like Mira said, single ingredient, tastes like an isolate, got all the benefit of the concentrate.
And then after that, we're going to hunker down and write another book.
Yeah.
Boom.
So, yeah. Now, everyone's been asking us, like, you have a lot of theory books out, and you told us how to go grocery shopping, but how exactly do I work this into a plan?
Gotcha.
So, yeah, we're actually writing a plan, a 28-day plan that'll be coming out in April next year.
It'll be called the Micronutrient Miracle 28-day plan, so look for it.
Sticking with the micronutrients.
Yep.
Beautiful. That's very exuding. It's exuding and exciting, because I'm just so overwhelmed with joy after hearing about that. So what name of the book again?
The Micronutrient Miracle 28-day plan.
Love it. Love it. Well, Jayson and Mira, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. And I really appreciate, again, it would be very easy to just be like, drink skinny fat. And that's not the message we're giving. So I so appreciate that. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week.
Well, thank you,
Oh,
Jonathan.
absolutely. Thank you so much
Thanks
for having us again.
Thank you. And listeners and viewers, I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. And please remember this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. We'll chat with you soon.